Yep. No, I love it. Just let's do it, man. I'm ready to rock.
All right, let's do this thing.
Hanging out. I'm excited to have Reese on. I'm excited to hear what you guys get into. So let's fucking go.
That's kind of where my head's at, right? Just all things GameStop, Ryan Cohen.
Okay, let's rock, man. I'm ready. Let's do it.
Dude, I ask weird questions. I know you're a Seinfeld guy, dude, but imagine like Newman just putting the spotlight on himself. That's what I'm gonna be doing to you.
I mean, I could give you a hot Seinfeld take. I'm actually more into Curb, honestly. Like, I don't know why I don't find Seinfeld as funny anymore.
Okay, edit that out.
Let's fucking go. We're gonna do this shit.
No, do it. Just do it, dude.
Let's fucking go.
No, I know it jacks me up.
Let's kill this, dude. Let's kill this right now.
3, 2, 1. Thanks everyone for checking out the show. I'm Sean Fitzy.
I'm Paulie. I'm Echo.
And I'm Chuck.
And I'm Reese Politics.
And this is the Echo Chamber. So it's only been 2 days since we last got together, but there's still a lot to talk about. RC followed Bitcoin yesterday, and then he replied to a post today suggesting that GME should buy Bitcoin. We have some 741s that Polly might have found in some recent posts from RC, and the 317 tinfoil intensifies. So we got some good stuff. As you heard, we have a special guest as well. Reese Politics is with us. I guess we can say in studio, in the Echo Chamber. So that's great. But how's everyone doing today?
So good.
Happy to have Reese here. This is what a wonderful surprise and get together this is.
Yeah, long-time listener, first-time caller. So thanks for having me on the program.
Right?
Nice. Yeah. Glad to have you here, and Echo's back there somewhere. We're not sure how much he'll be popping in, but Paulie, how's the last couple of days been for you, man?
You know, you kind of caught me off guard when you said it's only been 2 days since we last recorded, which I obviously know is true, but it feels like it's been so much longer than that. And we have so much to talk about already. I'm excited to get into it. Yeah, the price action obviously has not been that stellar, but aside from that, we have a lot of exciting things to cover, I think, and it's just really exciting things to dive into from a tinfoil perspective, also from a technical perspective, and we have some important moving averages involved, some important price structure, and we almost got down to Roaring Kitty's last known cost basis.
Yeah, I put a tweet out about that today. I make the line. It's 2341. I make it a bigger headband because he wears a headband, so I made it a big red line on my chart. Yeah, the chart hasn't been that great, but we'll take a look at it. I think we're coming up on. Well, I said 20% Tuesday, but that didn't happen. But we'll see. Chuck, how are you doing, man?
I'm still recovering from the wild robot. That emotionally took some years off my life, but yeah, I mean, I'm excited about what I'm kind of seeing from Ryan Cohen. I know the stock is easy to focus on. Obviously, nobody likes it when the stock's going down. But for me, it's been interesting that we're starting to finally see some movement, see some activity, see some action, right? And I think it's just a matter of time before we get some more clarity around what he could be cooking up. I mean, we know that he's not going to say his moves. He's not going to telegraph them. He's very much a man of action. It does feel like we're getting closer and closer to potentially seeing what that action is. And I'd be lying if I wasn't a little bit excited about the idea of it involving Bitcoin, simply because, the Bitcoin community is a large community, no different than GameStop. So the idea that potentially unifying those two communities or in some way, leveraging them, creating more awareness to GameStop, I think it's going to be a very powerful, almost unyielding force. So excited to see what happens from here.
Yeah, at this point, it's like he's either telegraphing a move or he's telegraphing something that he's not going to do. He's just being way too obvious at this point.
It's either a telegraph or a feint. Like he's either going that way or he's going the complete other way. So yeah, I'm here for it either way. Just give me some action. Don't let me sit on my toes.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun, and the Bitcoin community is actually pretty awesome. There's some good crossover too. I know Mozart You know Mozart.
Oh, that's my man. Love
Yeah,
Mozart.
yeah. Mozart's awesome. He was replying to a couple of the posts today too. So
He'd be a great
uh,
person to maybe have on the show in the future. If it depending on where things go from here, how things unfold relative to GameStop and Bitcoin, he's a great kind of advocate for Bitcoin. I think he'd provide a unique perspective.
yeah, I told him I'd keep his DMs open because
Hmm.
I have a lot of learning to do when it comes to Bitcoin because I don't know shit about it. So there's going to be some people out there that can help us. So yeah, you're great. You're right. He could be a very good person to bring on. So okay, cool. Echo, how you doing, man? How's it going?
I'm doing pretty well. Just, been hanging out, staying busy at work, which, this week sort of seems like a blessing in disguise because I can't stare at the screen all day. Um, but yeah, no, I'm here. I'm hanging out. I'm excited to have Reese on. I'm excited to hear what you guys get into. So let's fucking go.
It's funny you say the staring at the screen. I think people think I stare at GameStop far more than I actually do because I tweet incessantly about it. But I agree with you. Sometimes it's really, if you're a day trader, I get staring at the chart all day. But I mean, for those listening, if you're staring at the chart and getting mad because you're seeing it go down, just like take a moment, take a breath, go make some tea, step outside, go take a polar plunge, do whatever you need to do. But stop staring at the damn thing if it's driving you nuts.
Oh, 100%. I definitely
Mhm.
I'm a big believer in taking a step back, going and touching some grass and just, staying zen, staying in the moment and trusting in the process.
Oh, yeah. And if you want, you can even smoke grass. That's cool too in certain states.
Yeah, Echo is pretty zen. I like that about him. I stare at the chart all day long, and it's probably not necessarily good for me. Even when I'm at work, don't tell my boss. I don't think he listens. But
I've definitely had to tell you to zoom out a couple of times. You get
yeah,
real close in there sometimes.
yeah, it happens, and especially when you're on Twitter and stuff. Speaking of staring at the chart, I think Reese, you might stare at the chart about as much as I do. How are you doing, man?
Man, I was gonna say I felt personally attacked there by that one, Chucky. I think it was the Chucky who said that. Yeah, me
Oh,
too,
yeah.
man.
But
Um,
I come in shooting, baby.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I'm feeling pretty good. I was encouraged, obviously. I mean, Ryan Cohen's just been kind of telegraphing these moves. You said it well. Kind of going back to October, the way he's been kind of posting these, you can say cryptic type things or who's following. And then I was also really encouraged when I woke up and was looking through some XRT data as well. Looks really spicy for GME. So no hype dates here, but just kind of gives me a little bit more breath of fresh air after a couple weeks here of just horrendous price action.
Yeah, and Reese, for those who maybe are listening that aren't familiar, could you just maybe very high level elaborate on why you look at XRT?
Yeah, I mean, so it's funny because like one of the most common replies to uh GME short interest is, "Oh, it's 7% or whatever. It's
Hmm.
non-existent now. All the dilutions killed off the shorts and whatever." That is unequivocally false. And XRT is basically one of the large ETFs, and there's several ETFs that hold GameStop. And it's really the short hedge funds utility tool now to short GameStop without actually seeing on GameStop short interest that it's probably well over. I'm just speculating here. This is not confirmed,
Hmm.
but it's probably pretty high up there. So they basically use the vehicle and create and redeem shares of an ETF that holds GameStop without actually buying the shares of GameStop and then doing it the same way, shorting it down when you don't really touch ownership of the actual equity, in this case, GameStop. So it's really a nuanced way. It makes it harder to track, but there's still really good ETF data that you can look at on exchange that will show you kind of what they're doing, how they're doing it. And it's kind of serves as like a confirmation bias to like all the theories that the community's kind of been cooking up over the past few years, that there's way more going on here than meets the eye.
XRT is an amazing example of fuckery with GameStop. Even just a couple weeks ago, it came off of Reg Show, and going back now 3 times, 3 days, T3 after T3 after XRT comes off Reg Show, GME catches a bid. They had to come up with a fake article about Ryan Cohen buying Bitcoin this time to cover up the volume. That's my theory at least. But yeah, XRT and GME are intertwined, and they have been from the start. Well, at least since I've been paying attention in 2021. So that's cool that you keep a close eye on that. We got a couple things. I mean, we can look into the chart, but did you have something specifically that you saw in the XRT data that you You
Yeah,
were,
something pretty juicy, Fitzy, is this today, as of this morning, the lowest point of outstanding shares on XRT, way lower than May of last year, and you probably know why I'm referencing May of last year. So it just shows that they're kind of just, and you just mentioned it was on Reg Show for I think over 30 trading days. It just got off like a week ago. They're essentially selling right out of the fund. And you alluded to that blip up to like 31 in after hours last week, or whenever it was. We were all going crazy on X about it.
yeah.
You can just tell that they've kicked the can now so many times. And we can get into this later in the show, maybe, but I think September 20 is a really important date for this whole timeline. And we can kind of maybe go into tin on that too. But that's
Polly's
really,
ear. Yeah, Polly's ear.
yeah, Paulie's
Yeah, he
like, he
just
was
got
just
excited.
unwrapped his
Paulie's
got-
like
tinfoil hat
he's
here.
drooling. Paulie's
Yeah.
actually drooling over there.
One of my favorite days.
Yeah, it really is. So
But
sorry, go ahead, Reese. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So that's basically, you can start to see in these FTDs that keep piling up in all these different ETFs, and some individual equities too, which I think they get lazy reporting on, like Chewy, for example. I'm sure we'll talk about dog food stock later, but I mean, you could see they filled Keith Gill's entire trade on September 20 when he sold out. The exact amount of shares were failed. So, like, you can see all these things, but you can't exactly pinpoint unless you're Warren Kitty, because I'm pretty convinced that he knows the exact T plus. I don't know if you guys have dug into like T plus 32, T plus 33, 35, 69, etc. I threw the last one in there as a joke, but
I know that was for me.
Well,
That was for me.
maybe.
there-
I don't know. There is some T69 stuff out there, but go
yeah,
ahead.
no, but like seriously, so I think he knows like pretty much to a degree the exact days of settlement on some of these things, but I'll keep it kind of high level just to end on the XRT note. Is they've kicked the can on it now. We can see that they've kicked the can and they're getting sloppy, and that's what happened last week with the fake CNBC report, which, like, I don't want to say too much here, but they definitely were working with someone to get that information, right? Whether it was, we can also say it could have been a swap too. Like, I'll throw that out there, but it was most likely an ETF event. And the fact that it's happening now when GameStop is clearly somewhat outside of a buy cycle. And again, I say a buy cycle, not because no one's buying the stock. I think it's pretty clear a ton of people are, but it's kind of outside of one of these cycles, which totally is fascinating to me, because Ryan Cohen came out in the last earnings report and put out the statement that, or the company did, I don't know if it was Ryan Cohen specifically, that they were not going to dilute through, I think it was like February something. But you can,
February 1st.
exactly, but you can tell it's a
umbrella.
total scam, because this cycle that was going to happen anyway, they would have blamed it on dilution. But what really happened is they were just doing another ETF can kick, which is the same exact price action as it was before when RC actually did dilute in September. That's my theory anyway. And I think some of these numbers are starting to corroborate that, which is fascinating.
Algo's gonna algo is kind of what I hear, and I agree with that too. Like, it's gonna happen.
100%.
Yeah. So why don't you maybe introduce yourself to our audience? I know a lot of folks know you. We all know you.
I feel like you came out of nowhere. You came into our lives out of nowhere, Reese. We need to understand you better. Like,
Yeah, so
what is
let me
your
give you a
background?
backstory
Give
here.
it to us.
So I wasn't huge into talking about the markets, crypto, or stocks for a while. I first found GME, and I know you guys are going to throw tomatoes here, some of your listeners do, but through popcorn stock, and that's AMC for anyone that's not privy to the slang. Back in January of 2021, there was this horrible group of, well, I don't want to say horrible, but they were like basically like pumpers, and on Twitter, you guys probably have heard of some of them. For anyone that was like big on Twitter at the time, like Zach Morris, and like I think there was like a group called some trading thing, Atlas Trading maybe was it. I'm not sure.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, and like these guys would just shill these horrible stocks, right? Like just like garbage. And so one time, I think one of the guys tweeted out AMC, and dude, I'm working like a crappy desk job at this time, like just like totally burnt out. Like, I'm just like, dude, I need excitement. I need to make some coin. Like, let's go. So I literally blindly followed one of his calls on popcorn stock. I bought, and again, this is not financial advice, and it did not end well, but I bought weeklies on popcorn stock, freaking doubled my money in like probably, I'm not exaggerating, like an hour and a half. And I just thought like, whoa, this is interesting, right? So cash that out. And then I saw a lot of those same kind of people referencing GME as well. So of course, and you probably know where this is going, but bought in at a time where I was pretty much catching falling knife,
Yeah.
horrible cost basis to start. But it's kind of, I think it was a blessing in disguise for me personally because it kind of woke me up to how the market actually works, and without going into saying, oh, crime and whatever else, like, because that's a whole nother, we could do a freaking mini series on that. But without going into that, like, that's when I started paying attention to GameStop. And I'm like, there's something way more going on here than meets the eye. That's kind of when I started to like read some of that old DD. And for anyone that doesn't know what I'm talking about, like Super Stonk Library has some freaking bangers in it from like a couple years ago. So I started coming into that more and more and more as time went on. And then it just got to the point where like fast forward a couple years later, and I was mostly like talking about politics in my spare time. You can probably guess that from the name. But I just became obsessed with the markets and specifically about GameStop because I personally, and you guys might feel differently, but like GameStop to me doesn't represent just the company. It represents something way, 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 way larger going on in finance. And I just thought that was like the most compelling thing ever. So instead of troubling my family, like going into tin every single night, like I was doing and like just unloading on them with like absolutely cracked out things, I was like, God, I got to get this off my chest. So I just started beating the drum on it. And I was like, listen, I want to be in the arena because like you can smell you can smell it. Like there is something crazy going on that, in my opinion, I think it's bigger than January 2021. But we can talk about that later too. But anyway, that's kind of the long and short of it. Basically, got started from a few pumpers on Twitter, got totally burned by that, and then kind of just took an interest in it, and the rest is history.
Yeah,
Nice.
and I just quickly, I like you didn't quite say this, but I think previously, I phrased it almost similarly. Like I feel like with GameStop, and this is gonna sound cheesy at times, but it's almost like a story of good versus evil, right? Like, and I know that Wall Street historically we can blame, oh, it's crime, it's this or that. Like they've found a way to game retail investors within ultimately within the confines of the law in many cases. I think, we could speculate that they may be breaking laws, but all they receive is fines historically, right? That's why there's that phrase, no sell, no sell. It's because people are basically saying they don't want to sell their shares of GameStop until people are behind bars because they feel like something nefarious is going on behind the scenes. But I feel like what you're essentially describing is you are gravitated toward something so much larger just than the market structure itself. You're drawn to the fact that everyone knows there's only one stock that is GameStop. It's compelling. There's a reason people like myself and you tweet about it literally incessantly. And I know there's other stocks out there like Tesla and others, Nvidia that everyone is into, but there's just something about GameStop, right? It's always the shiny thing to us. And it's just interesting. I don't want to say like one of us to you, Reese, but it kind of feels that way. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, like it's funny you mentioned Tesla because like I was kind of into the Tesla story too, like early COVID days, like when that kind of started, there was like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? Like they're missing earnings, but stock is popping, and like you can just like you start to see those shades of like, okay, like talk about a company that I can say they in this case, but if you want specifics, like market makers and hedge funds did not want to succeed was Tesla. It was very obvious that they wanted like the American, like old time manufacturers like Ford, GM, et cetera, to like be the EV player. And they just relentlessly tried to steer that company into the ground. And Tesla was like, no, we're not doing that. And I think it's like very similar parallels almost to GameStop, where it's like they just want the company to no longer exist, and Ryan Cohen's at the helm of the pirate ship, and he's like, sorry, but that's not happening. Like we're taking this thing to
Yeah.
the promised land. And it's like that to me too is just like an unbelievable story of fight. It's David versus Goliath. And like I can't get myself jacked up about but pretty much anything else but that. So that's there you have it.
And it's funny, like we've also talked about, and I know Reese, you've highlighted this over your tweets, but like we continue to see institutional ownership increasing in GameStop, and it's like you said that perfectly, the parallels, right? Or people forget that originally they were trying to short Tesla into the ground. There's an iconic photo of Elon Musk, and I think he's like on the ground and he looks super defeated because like you're trying to short his company. He's trying to do something to like better the world, and he can't understand why Wall Street is essentially trying to cripple him. You fast forward, and Wall Street actually made him quite literally the richest person on earth. And that happened when they switched from shorting the company to going long on the company. And I can't help but think that when we see institutional ownership piling up, I know many people speculate that, hey, maybe they're doing it to lend out the shares. And that may be the case, maybe it's not. But they also could be getting on the proverbial rocket ship when GameStop ultimately sends, and they don't want to miss out. So they're doing articles to make you think that this company's garbage. Ryan Cohen doesn't know what he's doing. What are you thinking investing in GameStop? All the while, if you actually follow the numbers and follow the money, they're loading into the stock. And there's so many parallels to Tesla in that sense. And we all know what happened to Tesla, right? It's trading at well over $1,000 after, I mean, technically it's like, 300, but it's been split many times. The thing rocketed. And who's to say that can't happen with GameStop?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
we
I think
get
sorry, Fitzy. I was gonna say, like, I think it's a good segue to, like, Ryan Cohen too, because, like, what Elon was doing back then, Chuck, was like, dude, he literally made merch and, like, a pair of shorts, like, that said "sexy" on them or whatever, like, I mean, basically, like, a dig at the short sellers too, not to, like not to mention promoting his car line, but, like, it's just hilarious stuff, and, like, I think Ryan Cohen is basically, like, and we'll leave politics outside of this, but he's basically like an Elon light now and kind of doing his own thing where he's not trying to please everybody. He's not trying to like bend down and kiss the knee of these hedge funds. He's like, I'm going to do it my way and I'm going to do it for the company and I'm going to do it for the shareholders. And I think it's an absolutely compelling story that he's got going on too.
Yeah, I love the way he's doing it, and there is a ton of similarities that keep getting brought up. But Tesla did the long short squeeze that everyone talks about. But in terms of institutional buying, I think that's been Ryan Cohen's goal from the start is to get institutions to want to buy into GameStop. I think that's why he did the split. To be honest, to make it more attractive, and everything he's been doing since then seems to be working. So. It's a good thing. And then, in terms of starting out finding AMC, don't feel bad about that either, bro, because a lot of the people that joined the GameStop community kind of came out from that. I met a few really awesome people, including Echo, in an AMC Discord from a few of those pumpers. So, it's not really about where you came from; it's how you got here. So, we're glad to have you part of the community, and I think that's another awesome thing about GameStop is the community, and we got all kinds of cool people showing up, at different points in their journey, and I think you're a good addition. So good stuff. I really like your content. So
Heck yeah, man. I appreciate it, guys. But let's definitely talk about RC though, too, because I just feel like this whole saga, and I guess we can just key in on like basically late April of 2024 till now. Like, I feel like what he's done with the dilutions, timing them so well into cycles, coming out of that with almost $5 billion in cash. Now he's, following Bitcoin accounts. Then today, he goes out and obviously, responds to basically saying that he's received the letter. I'm sure you guys can, elaborate more on that, but it's just a wild twist. And I personally, I just can't wait to see what he's been cooking up this whole time.
So we can kind of go right into that. We try to talk about the chart a little bit on every show, every episode. There hasn't been very much to talk about with the chart though. So we're down 7.5% over the last 2 days. We got a cool little bid off of that RC tweet. I thought the timing was interesting when it came to the time of his tweet. He sent it right at 146, so I feel like he threaded a bit of a needle there.
Right.
Pauly has some 74110, and he's kind of maybe being a bit obvious about it. And then 145 is the algo. Seems to be like where the algo goes nuts. It's almost when we get a lot of the weird shit that happens. Kitty tweeted then too. I think it was in December. So it's like 145 is algo fuck time, and 147 is freak everyone else out time. And he went right in the middle there at 146. But yeah, chart not looking good. Pauly, I know you mentioned some technicals. I don't know if we're allowed to say 200 moving average anymore. I feel like that's been copywritten.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
But go
Well,
ahead.
and it's interesting you talk about kind of threading the needle there too, because one thing I was looking at earlier too is that I was just looking at the time in between his last 3 posts on X, and we've got the picture of him and Michael Saylor, the post about buying the Canadian and French parts of the business, and then the letter received post today, right? And so 2 of those were during market hours. One was in the middle of the night on a Saturday morning. But if you just look at the amount of market time that elapsed in between each of those, there's just some funny coincidences that popped up there. And so on the 5-minute chart, the time in between the last 2 were 420 bars. That felt intentional, knowing
Yeah, that
him,
track.
right?
Yeah.
And then also the time in between the Sailor post and the buying the French properties was 68 bars on the 30-minute chart, and then the time in between that one and the most recent one was 70 bars on the 30-minute chart. And so if you thread the needle between those, you get what?
Yeah, 69.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
God.
So yeah, and then today he threaded the needle between the magic 145 time and the 147. So I feel like he's just sort of teasing everybody at this point.
Yeah. Yes, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
And then what we're doing time between stuff. So what is just I can't
yeah.
even try to explain it. Go ahead.
I know the 74110 on what he's doing is just it's bananas at this point, but it's kind of entertaining. And so I noticed last night when we noted that he had followed Bitcoin, that there's just an interesting timeline that comes together on all of that. So if you'll kind of bear with me here, so we have if you go back to the January 22nd Roaring Kitty post, we got the Futurama video of the 12-year wait. That was on the 22nd, right? 12 trading days after that was February 7th. And then the evening of that, it was after midnight. Ryan Cohn posted a picture of him and Michael Saylor. So 12 trading days, or 7 trading days after that is February 19th, and it's after midnight that night on February 20th is when he follows Bitcoin Magazine. 4 calendar days later, February 24th, he follows Bitcoin in the evening. And then I'm going, okay, well, 1 calendar day and 1 trading day later, what's going to happen, right? And so I posted that last night, just sort of like half joking, half serious, like, okay, what's going to be the one? And then, of course, we got something that happened today. Now, I'm still sort of on Ryan Cohen follow watch tonight, like half expecting him to follow another account in case that is part of his countdown. But there were 7 trading days and then 4 calendar days and then another 1 day involved in that sort of sequence of events there. Now, there were also 12s involved there because of the Futurama video, and so I'm sort of going to tie that in as well. So there were 12 trading days from the Futurama video to the Sailor post. So that goes from January 22nd until February 7th, and then from February 7th. So from there you go to February 19th. That's another 12 calendar days. That was the day that he followed Bitcoin Magazine. That was after midnight, so it was after that. And then you go another 12 days. The 12 trading days after February 20th is March 10th. And so I look at it as sort of like bookends here. So it started with 12 trading days, and then it goes 12 calendar days. And then you get 12 calendar days again, and then 12 trading days. And so
Yeah, Mario Day, right? Like so
right.
that's interesting. And there's some good stuff with Mario Day in the past too. Like really good stuff. So
yeah. And so 12 trading days after February 20th is March 10th, and it also happens to be 12 calendar days after tomorrow, which is obviously the day after we got all of this from Ryan Cohen. So it's sort of an interesting confluence of all of these numbers coming together. We obviously don't know yet if it actually means anything, but just with how numbers have sort of played a role in everything, I like to see how it all comes together and paint a picture with it and see if it actually does mean anything. So
Reese
Yeah.
is wondering what kind of podcast he just got himself into over here.
Dude, no, I was just in a trance. I'm like, dude, this is the tin that I needed. I like that went over my head until you laid it out perfectly. So I'm like, dang, that's great. This
Yeah,
is
it's good. It's fun.
it's entertaining.
Yeah,
I
for
wouldn't
sure.
I wouldn't trade based on it, but it is entertaining.
No, and he loves these numbers. I mean, I have some
Yeah.
lore. We definitely need to do a 741 episode. And we can't really like cross over 10 too much, even though I feel like maybe there's some confluence of 10 events happening on
Nice.
March 17th. Yeah, I know. I've been working on that one.
I'm still not even sure I know what confluence means, by the way, but I pretend I know.
Yeah, just that the nice did it. Reese, you were kind of still talking about the chart. How's it been looking to you?
Well, one thing on Ryan Cohen real quick too that you guys were just talking about, the 146 number today that he tweeted, letter received. Like I know that's been a time, or 145 was with Roaring Kitty. And I just want to say, like, I'm convinced that they both know of these cycles and they both know of these relative times of day. So I wouldn't put it past Ryan Cohen to, like, he's definitely not overthinking it. I think he knows exactly what he's doing at the time he's doing it too, by the way. But two things on the chart, rounding formation, if you just go to the daily, you can see it from Feb 7 to today. Like, it's just
Mhm.
it's there. It's getting a little too low to really be like a true rounding formation, but like it's there. And it usually GameStop will catch not only a little volume, but a little upside after that. So hopefully that theory proves true. It's pretty much been consistent for like years on the
Yeah.
daily. And then secondly, on Roaring Kitty's charts, I always like to look at these because basically I check them like all the time just to see if like he gives us a sign there. But you can, if you guys find this, you can find it on Superstock too if you just type that into Google, Roaring Kitty's charts. His last indicator, the PMO,
Yeah.
was so close to crossing to the upside like 2 days ago. And that's when I thought that Ryan Cohen was kind of like trying to pop it up to start the next kind of cycle wave on GameStop. Now it's sloping down just a little, but it's still like so close to crossing. All it would take to cross is like probably like a 5 to 6% day on GameStop. And I think then we could start to see, things kick off a little bit faster. But again, we'll just remain patient for now. Like if you zoom out and look at like the monthly or even the quarterly chart, like it just looks so good and so primed. This like downside makes it look like basically just like a back test of the breakout, honestly. So I like, that I'm bullish. Obviously, I don't have to tell you guys that.
Permeable. That's the way we roll too. If Greg just wouldn't have fucked that cake, I think everything would have been so much better. I think we're down like almost 4. I don't know what percent. I'm gonna check real quick. Since Greg fucked the cake, we are down 29%. Just saying. Speaking of cycles, we're at that Feb OPEC settlement time, so I'm still hopeful for this week. I put 20% Tuesday. That did not happen, but I really just kind of mean today, tomorrow, and maybe Thursday. If we're gonna run in the month of February, I think it'll be these 3 days. But then after that, I think if you're looking at cycle life, we're looking at March and right around earnings and around March 17th. Well, we're kind of touching on the tinfoil. I'll just say that I think 317 continues to look like something that Ryan Cohen might be pointing at. For one, and not to talk about his family like too much at all, but that is, I believe it's his father's birthday. One of RC's earlier tweets is on 317, and it's a picture celebrating his dad.
Yeah.
And he feels very strongly about his father, and he feels like he's where he is because of his dad. And I think that's why he timed the announcement of the NFT marketplace in 2022 for that part of the year as well. I think that is prime time for RC, maybe because of his dad, maybe because it is Q4 earnings and it's the best earnings of the year for GameStop. Definitely plays a role in it. It has a hot time in terms of runs in the past for GameStop as well. 2022 was a nice one. 2023 was a single day run in March. 2024 we missed hard. Well, we didn't miss. They changed. They bumped EPS predictions up on us right before earnings, and then we ended up falling short. We got a quick little bid right before the call, and then sold off until Kitty started buying in April. So really, if we're 2024, this part of the chart is about as bad as he got in the past for GameStop. So we're gonna skip thinking about that. So 317 has had some pretty good stuff. LC sent out a tweet, I think it was Sunday as well, where he was talking about PSA, which was nice. But then he started talking.
Right.
Then he started talking, a digital vault for PSA, which I thought was really interesting.
And sorry, quickly, Fitzy, for those listening, LC is Larry
Larry
Johnson,
Chang, the gangster.
Yes.
Yeah.
the gangster. He's my
Yeah,
boy.
he's
Likes Pokemon cards.
badass, dude. Yeah, that same day he put out some good tweets on Sunday. He put
Mhm.
out
Yeah.
a spreadsheet showing his Pokemon cards value. I think that it was Pokemon, and how they've grown since he started his
Yeah.
collection.
Yeah.
And
That was a cool way to visualize it, because I think, there are people that are very much ingrained in like the trading collector card community, and then there's kind of everybody else. I don't think most normal, I don't want to say normal, that sounds mean. I don't think most people realize that if you hold on to these cards, you can actually like use them as investment vehicles. So like I know people that are buying, I'm a New England Patriots fan, so I know people who are buying Drake May cards because they view it as, okay, if I buy his rookie card and this dude goes on to have a great career, there's going to be upside there. And I think his tweet kind of embodied that, showing, hey, these are cool. Like, we like Pokemon, they're fun to look at, but these are also great investment tools. And when you can make money on something and you create a marketplace for it, I mean, that's the value proposition that is PSA and GameStop, right?
yeah, and that digital vault is interesting too. I think what he's saying is he sends his cards into them and they hold it. And
Yep.
then
Mm-hmm.
who knows? I mean, there's a whole NFT connection that we could try to make when it comes to digitizing cards that are graded through PSA and having a whole component like that in a real world and a non-fungible. That would be wonderful. But just the whole idea of sending your cards in there, and then I guess if you sell it, they pull it, and they're kind of just like a holding company for your cards, and it's like a bank for cards. It's pretty interesting. So I thought that was cool. I see some really interesting, you talk about card buying out there. Diamond Ape continues to buy stuff. He had some, I'd have to go back and look now, but he's just buying some exotic types of cards now too. He's like, never bought this. Let me just try this today. So he's, if you're a GameStop out there and you got some cards, I'm sure Diamond Ape is about to show up at some point and clean you out. He's not really concerned about what cards they are either. He's just trying them all nowadays. So yeah, 317, his birthday. Oh, then my crazy tinfoil about 317 is that if you take his two profile pictures, and I don't even know if I talked about this on Sunday, but the Crazy Heart, yeah, I did. The Crazy Heart AI picture has a 17 in it, and then his most recent profile picture has that weird 3 over his ear. So you put them together, kind of. He's got two numbers in his profile pictures. We're gonna look at them. He's gonna know we're gonna look at them too. I mean, that's kind of
Of course.
So, putting them together, meshing them. Even his profile pictures are an interesting story if you go back and look, because he did the whole transformation thing in there too. I haven't even really tried to dive too far into that. And then lastly, it's St. Patrick's Day, so that's not as much about RC, more so as Kitty has a good history.
Cheers.
Cheers, everybody! Like, that's one of the most famous ones is him with his hat on, and he has that video that he posted. So I don't know. 317 is looking great. I feel like that is an OPEX week, and I fucking hate OPEX weeks. Like, more and more, I'm growing to really despise them. So, but if RC were to do something like put earnings on that, and if they are buying Bitcoin or whatever, and they do have some sort of an announcement for earnings week, which is what they did in 2022, pretty much all RC's announcements have come around earnings, by the way. So if we're gonna get one, it'll be around then. That would be about when we'd see it too. 317 in 2022, he bought as well. So if we do earnings on, say, the 19th, that Wednesday, he could buy on the 21st, and that's it. That's your sign. He's about to set it off for the following week. So I don't know. 317 is looking good for me. As with all things tinfoil related, it's probably not going to become true. I don't know. That's about how it goes.
I mean, all fuel the fire, like Max Payne, and I shudder even saying those words, just because of how brutal
Yeah.
Fridays are. But for April 4th, it's $30, which can change, obviously, but that's what it is as of now. So, like, if you kind of take 317 and whatever may happen then, like, maybe temper expectations for 317 itself, but like anything crazy that happens around that date, like the fallout of that, will span over the next couple of weeks. So that's why I'm kind of getting jacked up here for for that similar time frame.
March earnings is just good for us. I like that.
Well, and historically, and I've done some tweets about this. Like how do I know that GameStop is going to close at exactly $25 or $26 or $27? It's not because I'm a mind reader. It's not because I'm from the future. It's because GameStop on low volume is so controlled by, Reese called them they earlier, the market makers, the hedge funds, whatever. But it's so controlled that they can't even help themselves. They're closing GameStop to the penny, if not the exact amount that is max pain. So, when Reese says, look at April, it's going to be 30, my brain's telling me, okay, I think the stock is going to head toward 30. They're going to make up a slew of reasons as to why it's heading that way. Like we've already seen fake articles. Like the fact that there was just a picture with Ryan Cohen and Michael Saylor. Suddenly, 19 different media outlets are posting that GameStop is looking into cryptocurrency as a viable investment strategy. Oh, are they? Because I'm pretty sure there was just a picture posted with two dudes. Like, if Reese and I post a picture, are people going to insinuate that and somehow, like, I'm now into politics and we're going to have a YouTube channel? Like, it's just the way they can kind of stretch and align the price action with a fake article makes me think that they are going to do something similar, if not something big will actually come out to kind of validate max pain being around 30. And as Reese said, it could change, but history tells me that it will close within the penny or the exact amount. So I'm with you, Reese. I'm pretty bullish. I'm feeling pretty jacked up. I like what I'm seeing with Ryan Cohen and everything that's going on. And when you see max pain at 30 in April, I mean, how can't you be excited?
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of goes along with like everything with ETF cycles too, like hitting that point. And I'll just tie it back to that. I'm convinced that Ryan Cohen knows the same intel that Roaring Kitty does. They both know what's in the box, so to speak. And if you're Ryan Cohen and you know this, and now you're sitting on $4.6 billion in cash and you deploy it at the exact moment when you know that a cycle's kicking off, like that would be his coup de grace. Like that would be his moment. Like to me, he's that calculated. You guys obviously are better with pointing out the tin stuff, but like if he's that calculated and some of those things are true, like what a better moment for him to kick it all off. So I don't want to jack people up too much, but that's just
No,
kind of
do it.
my
Just
own
do
inner
it, dude.
belief. So like but the other thing too about like this whole Bitcoin thing is they're almost setting it up to where it's like if he doesn't do it, if GameStop doesn't buy Bitcoin, like they're going to use that as an excuse to slam the stock down the day after March earnings too. Like we've seen this song and dance before.
yeah.
We saw it. I mean, look, dude, like March 2024 earnings too. Like same thing. Stock rips up 20% and then boom, they just slam it into Earth's core and it bottoms. And then you know what happens after that. But it's just another thing that like I'm just kind of trying to tread lightly on because it's like if they don't do that, then like I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed. But those people don't move the markets. The people that move the markets will use it as an excuse to just pile it back down. So I think this is Ryan Cohen wouldn't be, in my opinion, he wouldn't be acting this way so confident if he didn't have something cooking. Like that
Yeah.
has to be the case this time.
And it's funny you mentioned the confidence, Reese, because on the previous episode we talked about his recent tweet about Canada and French operations, and again we feel for those in Canada and France and that may be impacted. Obviously there's GameStop investors and advocates globally, but you would not put out a tweet like that unless you had a certain level of confidence, or I don't even know, genuine craziness. But either way, it reminds me of when I watched the live stream of Roaring Kitty. And this guy, he's putting out tweets that were like, I was a billionaire. And like, you can't be like a sane person on a live stream where like the stock is cratering and it's not affecting you unless you kind of understand that there's something bigger here. I can be patient. Because he's known for being, almost maniacally patient. It goes back to when, as a runner, I think at Stonehill College, his coach said Keith could go into a place that most people can't go. I think Ryan Cohen has a bit of that in him as well, right? Like people love to underestimate him. I think people think in much too short time frames. They expect you to build something overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day, and he's only been the CEO for what was it 2023? He technically became the CEO of GameStop. So I think people want action and results quickly, but I think those who are truly planned strategists, they know that these things take time. And as you said, Reese, perfectly, they're waiting for that calculated moment to strike. And if that's, tomorrow, a month from now, 3 months from now, if you're a long-term investor of GameStop, you will be rewarded. You just have to kind of put some faith in those that are leading the company, and put some faith in the fact that what you're seeing and all these glitches, they add up to something. They are kicking the can, and things can change quickly.
Yeah, and I think we learned a lot from Roaring Kitty's last live stream too, in like not like I like at a surface level, I was just waiting for him to say like I like the stock or something like that, and then see like, it get vaulted on the upside. But obviously we didn't get that. But what we did get is Roaring Kitty basically said to the effect that what's a long time in the stock market in terms of holding a stock? And he was alluding to 1 to 2 years, which, would kind of line up to almost a year from when things really kicked off last May. So I think that's kind of, in my opinion, that's kind of his timeline, and not to mention his emoji timeline. He's telegraphed this all out, brick by brick, forecasting these things in advance. So kind of, I would like to separate it from what Ryan Cohen's doing too, because we really have a two-headed monster here where
Hmm.
I think something's already coming due that's rather large, shall I say. And then the second piece of that pie is that Ryan Cohen can send this thing at any minute, on top of the fact that there's probably some mythical type swaps due around a certain point in the next several months to a year. So like you have these two things going on, and it can happen at any moment. It's just like I'm just on the edge of my seat every day, even with the sleepy price action, knowing that this is like most likely happening
Yeah,
behind the
I was gonna
scenes.
say, I was gonna say, I
Yeah.
think it. What's in the box is swaps, right? That's kind of what you think it is too. Sounds like it.
Yeah, and I've gotten a little too deep on the DD in these, but and I'm not a computer programmer, but some of the people that have put these together are, and they look pretty good. And I think Roaring Kitty's emoji timeline with dog food stock is really one of the most fascinating things about this whole timeline, because he was going to go to Chewy no matter what happened on GameStop's earnings call. I think it was like the first week of June in 2024, or they did some sort of call, and we were all hoping that they would like announce something, or that they bought Bitcoin back then or what have you, but they didn't. And all we got was the dilution. And then we just got a sea of red candles in the morning. So like that was, Ryan Cohen took advantage of that perfectly, sold into the high volume. And no matter what, Roaring Kitty was already planning to go into Chewy and do the same thing and blow up those swaps and park that money there. Like this was already in motion. So like it has to be something so big, in my opinion. Again, this is not financial advice, but it has to be something so big that these sequences cannot change and that they're going to come due. And I think the carry trade too, I don't know how deep you guys are into that, but I think this is unraveling at another perfect time to hit into a massive ETF buying window again, and swaps being due. And like when I say like masterpiece, like I think this is Roaring Kitty's masterpiece, and it's coming due somewhat soon. I don't ever really specify when I think it's going to be, because that I know how I used to be with hype dates.
Yeah.
And my bank account learned the hard way to not subscribe to those type
Yeah,
dates.
hype dates suck. Oh, well, hype dates suck if you got like a whole lot invested in it. Call it.
I mean, I'm here for
Yeah.
them
Oh
though.
yeah.
Like if you have them, I will happily read them. And I've probably read every super stock post that has involved a hype date or a banana bet. So like I'm not saying, they're bad, but I just, in terms of like people being out of control with their buying calls and what have you, like that, I don't want to
You
get
would
into.
think that like after this long and this many hype dates that have missed these, and I'm gonna say hypothetical people that keep getting smoked on these hype dates, because I know you got a following, you get this bullshit in your comments too, but you put out one suggestion that any day has a possibility, and 10 comments of people telling you quit hyping, you're costing everyone money. But if you're buying calls on GameStop because I'm saying Roaring Kitty likes St. Patrick's Day, that's on you. Like I'm sorry, but
I mean, dude, if you're buying weeklies on like
yeah,
anything like that, you know that there is insane risk to that. Like even like IWM, which I track like crazy as well, because I know that they don't hold GME, but I know something's fishy there. They failed $1 billion worth of the stock IWM on September 20, the same day that Roaring Kitty sold Chewy. So like
Mm.
if you think that this isn't big, like I've got news for you. This is going to be
I like
massive.
Well, it's funny, Reese. You mentioned the failed to delivers. We haven't really gotten into this a whole lot, but number like So failed to delivers, right? Conceptually, there's an irony there that I remember if you go back years, I think we were waiting on an SEC report to tell us the failed to delivers for GameStop, and then the report was delayed. So there was like a certain irony there of like they failed to deliver the report that highlights the failed to deliver data, which was just God, perfect irony. But I remember that there was I don't know the exact date, but Roaring Kitty returned. So when Roaring Kitty returns, typically what do we see? We see a surge in volume and we see volatility on the price action. And if I think you posted this, you look at the FTT data, and what do we see the day after he tweeted? A 0 for FTDs. So you're telling me that on a day where we went from kind of non-standard volume, very low volume, to increased volume because he tweeted, on that next day where we saw heightened volume, there's no FTDs. Like it's so ridiculous to me that I don't even want to use the word glitch anymore because it's triggering to me in my household. Like if I hear the word glitch, I start getting a little bit sweaty and a little bit shaky. But I mean, it's just you see this stuff everywhere, right? Where like you have a day where there's heightened volume, and now we're supposed to be led to believe that there's absolutely zero FTDs. Like you go back to the kick the can analogy. I mean, this thing has just been kicked to a pulp.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I think right now, like these past probably 10 trading days, and we're recording this February 25 for anyone listening to this in a little bit in advance, but I think we're going to see some decent sized fails on GME, and we won't get this data for a while. But the problem with that data now, Chuck, is that the SEC came out a couple months ago, and they're like, people were submitting Freedom of Information Act requests to get the rail failure to deliver data for the times that it was blank in the past. And I think they made a mistake because they basically admitted that there's public data and then there's other data. And to me, that raises a big red flag that we might not be getting the true FTD data. So before the SEC did this, I had people in my replies going, "Oh, there was no fails. That means they cleared out, all the trades and everything's, all tidy." And I had to block people because I got so sick of it. Because if you believe that, I have a
Bro,
bridge
they'll
to sell
chase
you.
you.
Like that is
Yeah,
not
that's how you know you're
like that is not how the market works, man. If you think that they have delivered $1 billion worth of IWM after that, you've got to be kidding
Yeah, that's how
yourself.
you know you're putting out good
Right.
stuff, is that you start having to block the people that really want to tell you you're dumb. Like it's
I
yeah,
love those people. Those are
and
my
it's always
favorites.
that kind of
Well,
data.
by the way,
It's always that kind of data.
by the way, it's not. Is it really that far fetched to believe that Wall Street has people on X that are pretending to be people that are sliding into your replies and trying to call you an idiot because you're pointing out data? Oh, Reese, you're so dumb. FTD data doesn't even matter. Short interest doesn't even matter. Cost to borrow doesn't
That's
even
the one.
matter. What are you looking
Cost to
at?
borrow.
Right? It's because
Well, that's the funniest thing too is like the Len pool. Like people used to
Yeah.
bark at me for like posting that, but like the Len pool, like basically, if you weren't convinced that something was going on in late April and early May when the fee started shooting up and the Len pool was starting to deplete, like that was a perfect precursor where you could have said, okay, I'm taking a position in GME right now just based on that, and you would have been well off because of it. And the same thing is happening. It's just now like the most fascinating part of where we are today is they're not touching the Len pool because they're abusing the ETFs, which is what we saw happen in after hours a week ago. Stock shoots up 20% because you have to buy those shares. You cannot kick the can so long to the point you never do. You have to buy those shares. So like if anyone is worried about these like 5% down days here and there, today was so boring until Ryan Cohen tweeted, like, you have to remember, like, these things come and they come quick, and there's large volume on these type of events. So like I'm personally like, yeah, you can say permabull, but like if I saw something that truly made me bearish, I would beat the drum about that for sure. I just haven't seen anything to that effect. And I think the SEC gave us confirmation bias that we needed, that the data's fudged and there's something so large going on behind the scenes. You can see the same thing happening in the dark pool right now, where they are literally internalizing buy orders, but they'll send like a 5-to-1 ratio of sell orders through lit market, which again makes 0 sense.
So you're gonna find that
Yep.
we run out of time pretty quick while doing this, and we're getting ready to come up on it. I was getting ready to go into a whole borrow rate rant because really, if there is if there is one indicator that has been the one, is that borrow rate starts moving, and 2 or 3 days later, if you can get a steady run
Yeah.
of borrow rate climbing, we're gonna get a move for GameStop, and that's like 100%, almost as solid as a sex tweet from Ryan Cohen. You're gonna get a run after that, which is he's 100% there too, by the way. The borrow rate moving and especially getting up above 20%, it's almost a sure thing, and that happens so quickly that so yeah, we track that shit. Of course we're gonna track that shit. We watch everything. Why wouldn't we watch one of the biggest indicators of a move of GameStop? So yeah, it's annoying. It's annoying, Reese. They fucking. I almost don't even want to post about borrow rate and lend pool at all anymore.
No, I love
I
to.
can't
I have
stand it.
to. I'm not
I
gonna
mean,
let them
dude,
stop me.
honestly, I still do it sometimes just to drum people up because like there are some people that like are just
Oh, they
vehemently
hate it.
against it. But
That draws them out.
like
I love it. Gets me jacked up. I take it as pre-workout. I do that tweet. I read the replies, and I go to the gym. Gets me all jacked up.
yeah, no, I feel that. I feel that. But you can tell like by the fact that it's not moving right now that they're doing something
Oh
else.
yeah, for
So
sure.
like
Right.
that's the mystery right now that I'm trying to figure out is okay, they're abusing XRT. We know that. We see that in the data. But now that they have to buy shares of GME to put back in XRT, is the lend pool not ticking up? Like you would think it would be. So I got to dig into more ETFs because
hmm
really something's amiss there.
So what I don't, Reese, I don't have the answer to that, but I think listen, I love to belittle Wall Street because I truly believe that they're playing with cheat codes, and nobody should be ever impressed by somebody who beats a video game using cheat codes. But I will say this. They are hyper aware of what retail investors are looking at. And they know that we're focused on the cost to borrow percentages and the rates and the amount of shares because people like myself and people like you and people like Fitzy have historically posted them. So what do? They make sure that, oh, look, look at all the, shares available. Look at the rate. It's nice and low. There's nothing going on here. Like look the other way. So I think we don't know what's going on. We don't know how they're doing it, but I think they're smart enough to realize that if we cannot just have the rate surge. We can't have it showing, going from a 35.35% borrow rate to 72% borrow rate because people like myself and you were going to pick up on that. So we have to find another means to do this. And I think that's what they're doing, right? Because then they can go back and say, look, hey, cost of borrow doesn't matter. And what happens? The shills are in our reply saying cost of borrow doesn't matter because it's all tactical, it's all strategic, and they're a weaponized machine.
Yeah, I feel the same exact way about it. Like no doubt about it. Anything more on
Yeah,
Chewy?
yeah. I was gonna say,
Ollie?
Paul, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, so since you brought up Keith Gill's Chewy filings earlier, I kind of want to circle back to something that I don't think I've talked about it on the show before. Maybe I have. I know I've posted about it, so it's a little hard to keep straight. But something that I came across when I was looking at just time on the chart before is that there's an interesting piece that comes up, and this is something that I really started to look at a little bit closer to when the week before March 17th started to pop up a little bit more as well. And that's that when I started looking closer at the dates that he filed his 13Gs for Chewy, you've got the first one that was filed on July 1st, but there's the date of the event that requires the filing. That was June 24th. So that's the date that he crossed the 5% threshold. Then the second filing came on Cat Day, right? So that was October 29th, right? So I started looking at where those are in relation to one another, and the whole 69,420 minute tin, and because that tin came and went on another date and didn't pan out, and so I just kind of got curious on the Chewy filings. And so, long story short, if you use the Cat Day filing as the midpoint and you have a 69,420 minute timeline, then the end point falls on March 12th. Now, it would have fallen on March 11th if not for the Jimmy Carter funeral. And then the beginning of it falls on June 24th, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that. And so So on June 24th, there was a ton of buying activity on Chewy. There's something like 24 million shares. And when you look at the chart that day, it is pretty easy to confirm like that is likely the day that he finished his buying, or at least maybe even started and crossed that 5% threshold, and maybe he finished up his buying. But anyway, so we know from the filing that he crossed the 5% threshold that day. And so it's just sort of an interesting correlation. And so if you're looking for a hype date, there is an interesting 69,420 minute timeline on Trading Minutes only that spans from the beginning of when he started accruing his Chewy position, and then the midpoint is when he dumped his Chewy position, and then the end point would be March, depending on whether you choose to acknowledge Jimmy Carter's funeral as a market holiday or not. It would be March 11th or March 12th. So sort of an interesting.
That's pretty
interesting
wild
piece.
because January 9 was kind of like a hype date before they announced that the market was going to be closed then.
Still pissed.
Obviously, the CAT system, yeah, I
Fucking
mean,
Jimmy. Sorry.
know,
Go ahead.
pay our respects, but I mean, yeah. And then like the CAT system flagging $13 trillion in trading errors on January 13th, like something bad happened in that time period and something massive happened in that time period. And I think we're going to see the ripple effect from that follow. So that's great on Chewy. Like that kind of just proves the point that Roaring Kitty is beyond calculated too. Like even if half of that is true, like I think that just perfectly, like that is Roaring Kitty in a nutshell. Like that is how sophisticated and calculated he is.
Right. Yeah. So like my own personal opinion is that if he is going to do an SEC filing in March, it's probably going to be on one of those 2 days.
Nice.
I'm drooling at the sound of an SEC filing right now. I'd be freaking awesome.
Aren't we all?
Right.
All right. Well, we have not much time left, as Fitzy would like to say. So, Reese, you are a man of mystery. You're a popular dude. We have some fan questions for you, and we don't have much time, so I'm just going to hit you with two that are kind of the ones that popped up to me, if that's all right with you. So, first question.
Reese's Pieces.
Oh, yeah.
Big pieces, little pieces, masterpieces, Reese's Pieces, head pieces, neck pieces, hair pieces, Reese's Pieces, eye pieces, nose pieces, Reese's Pieces, 3 pieces, 2 pieces, 1 pieces, Reese's Pieces.
So this one's from Han Drolo, who I happen to play give or take 3 to 5 hours of Marvel Rivals a day. There's no bias here, but this question jumped out to me. So here we go. Here's the question. What do you see as the biggest issue with trading now? Dark pools, FTDs and trade settlement, lack of oversight for market makers, hedge funds, brokers, naked short selling, etc. I think he's just asking you, kind of generally speaking, what's the biggest issue you see with trading?
Okay, I mean that's a great question. Shout out to Hondrolo. And it's funny because like the dark pool thing is obviously becoming increasingly it's becoming a bigger issue day by day. Like January 2025, Bloomberg reported that there was record dark pool volume never seen before. Like that's obviously very suspicious. We can track that. I mean, I post about it almost every single day. Like we know that's a problem. They were invented in 1979. The SEC didn't even tweak the rules for them until 2016, by the way. Like talk about lack of oversight. It's just ridiculous. But we know that the SEC nor FINRA cares about that. Europe does. Luckily, like they put actions into cap dark pool trading volume, which is very smart and definitely something we should do here. But really, I think the biggest problem is lack of enforcement. Like if there was a penalty to doing any one of those things that Hondrolo tweeted about, like you wouldn't see half of the issues that exist today. Like even if there were just moderate fines, and I'm not talking about like business crushing fines, but like actual penalties or criminal penalty for doing those things. That's the number one thing I think that needs to change is actual enforcement of the law.
100%. Great answer. Okay.
Love it.
Last question.
You want Reese's Pieces, do you?
Ah, Reese's Pieces. Oh, who in the world was that?
I don't know.
Oh,
Kind of looked like your cousin Willie.
This one's a little more lighthearted, but We have somebody in the community. His name is Sky Brock Moeller. I may be absolutely butchering that name, but that's okay. He wants to know very specifically, will you unblock him?
No, I will not. And I think I'm gonna ratchet up the sanctions on him
Nice.
too.
He deserves them. I'm
So
not gonna
he's
lie. You're good.
and he'll remain benched. And I don't see that changing.
Well then.
All right, wrap it up, Fitzy. That's a great answer.
That's a mic dropping moment. So, yeah, thank you, Reese, for coming in and hanging out with us, man. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day. I know you got some young ones at home and all kinds of other shit going on. So, thanks for hanging out with us, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. You have a great show. And Sky, I'm just kind of playing with you. I will take your request into consideration, but we'll leave that for another day. Maybe when I'm in a better mood, when we see some green candles.
You got to prove yourself,
catch on a
Sky.
day like
You
that.
gotta do some. You gotta go on a journey. You gotta
Bad
prove
days,
your.
man.
Yeah.
Been beaten down here.
Put some work in on it, Sky. You might get added back. So, all right, everyone else, thanks for listening to the show. We appreciate all you guys. A nice little 2-episode week. We'll be back on Sunday. Thanks, Chuck. Thanks, Paulie. Thanks, Echo. And thanks, Reese, for hanging out. And thank you, everyone, for checking out the show. Have a good day.
Peace.
Thanks, Reese.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Great show. Catch y'all later.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Nice.
God, Reese, you're a natural.
Good job, dude. That was good.
That was fun.
Yeah, good show. Good show. You know what? The only thing I'm surprised by is we didn't get into Greg tinfoil. So
Oh, that's because Fitzy gets.
Yeah, I got
irate
problems.
if we go too much.
I got beef with Greg.
All the crooked hedge funds meet, all the big dogs on Wall Street. The SEC gets on the line. Stop the buying, we'll say we're blind. When the brokers froze, the game did stop, but retail rose up to the top to make a stand and hold the line with diamond hands. Beat them blind. The price to drop, they yell, please sell. We held our shares through the depths of hell. Up and down to hell and back. Us diamond hands we never cracked. Through the storm our spirits swell. Against the suits we did rebel. In the fray we found our track. Solidarity, our counterattack.
Yeah, I haven't heard a single thing you guys have said. I've been trying to get my headset hooked up this whole time.
oh my gosh, you've missed everything.
Yeah.
We're done, dude.
We just wrapped.
That's a wrap.
Good talk.